thing on our meeting tonight, our special meeting, is a professional services update by Bob Steinberg.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Steinberg, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, appreciate it. Is this on or? It's on, okay. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Mr. Mayor, glad to be with you this evening and bring you an update on where we are with things as it relates to the budget. The House has passed its budget with nothing specific in it, but they are allocating, they've agreed on allocating money to certain sections, what they're gonna spend on infrastructure and so on and so forth, but no specific appropriations made. It has gone over to the House. The House this week is, I think the House has actually put its finishing touches on what they want to do. So, that is done. The next step in the budget process is there will be members of the House and Senate, primarily appropriation chairs, who will be meeting as conferees, and they're going to get together and they're going to decide specifically what appropriations are going to be funded and to what amount. Now, there is a significant difference in the two budgets. Although it's the same amount of money, it's about $30 billion. And just to give you an idea how fast North Carolina is growing, when I first went into the General Assembly 10 years ago, 11 years ago, it was about $22 billion. So we're up to $30 billion now on this biennial budget. The difference, the primary difference between the two chambers process as to where it is right now is that the Senate has allocated for extra projects and so forth $500 million. The House has allocated $1.5 billion. Again, the overall numbers are the same, but the individual expenditures the House is calling on, they'd like to see $1.5 billion spent on projects such as yours and all of the other folks, and the Senate is at $500 million. I'm really kind of surprised at the Senate figure, but my guess is, because I think it's lower than it should be, but my guess is what the Senate is doing when they saw the $1.5 billion from the House, they came back with $500 million, and I suspect they're probably going to compromise at about $1 billion. They'll split the difference, and that'll be.
And how does that work? How's that like? Is that normal? What's the
yeah? I mean, this is
average they spend on those things?
Well, we're in a much better position this year than in this budget than we have been in the past, because there's a lot of extra money in there that hasn't been there in the past. That has to be spent. It's federal money that's come down, and it's got to be allocated. The big emphasis is going to be on water and sewer, that kind of thing. You know, that's where they really want to try and do as much as they can. And there's certainly, you had projects that were water and sewer, so does every other folks, all the other folks rather, excuse me, that have asked for funds. Now, the way the budget process works this year is your representatives, your senator and your House member, the mayor has signed off on this and worked together with the council on getting your requests together and then submitting them through a portal. And the portal went to both the senator that that represents you and the House member. So in this particular case, I believe we have the senator and the House member pretty much in sync on what they're going to be asking for. Sometimes that's not always possible, it doesn't always work that way, but that's a good thing. I mean, that they're both, in other words, one isn't against something that the other one is for. So I think that will, that will help us. We don't have any idea what your particular appropriations are going to be. We have none. Nobody does, because that's where we are right now. We just don't know. These folks will have to make the decisions, and we are continuing to pursue both not only your legislators who are representing the town of Edenton, but also the chief appropriation chairs to be talking to them to make sure that they're aware of, and I know they are, but we want to make doubly sure that they're aware of what you all are asking for. So, so far, so good. I expect that we are going to be probably the last week of June, I think, is when the budget will be passed. We're not expecting a veto this year, and we're in a good position even if we had to override one because we have supermajorities in both chambers, but I don't think there's going to be a veto as much as the governor may have objections about some things that are in the budget that might have caused him to veto the budget in the past. Medicaid expansion is part of the budget, and it's the Governor Cooper's signature request, and if he vetoes the budget, Medicaid expansion does not happen. So from a political standpoint, I don't think we're going to be looking at a veto. So and then they'll pass the budget and we'll be off to the races. That's where we are at this point in time. Yes, sir.
So we have a senator, we have a representative, we have you. Is there anything that we need to be doing as a council in terms of making clear our priorities?
Well, I will compliment your county manager, not your county manager, your city manager, town manager, excuse me, Corey. And that wasn't necessarily an elevation, you know, I mean, but your city manager, town manager has been keeping up with me consistently. I mean, we're talking back and forth and exchanging emails and seeing one another. So, and he obviously is communicating with you, so I'm getting the messages that I need to get loud and clear. Now, I work with another gentleman, as you know, Jackson Stansel, and Jackson, as has been said before, Jackson's office is in the Wells Fargo building, which is just a block and a half away from the General Assembly. So he's there every day, knocking on the doors and making sure everybody's been seen. And I've talked to both of your legislators, and they're being seen, that's for sure. And then I'm in Raleigh, generally speaking, 1 day a week, sometimes 2 days a week. But I'm kind of going in for the closing act to, you know, make sure that my former colleagues we're in sync on some of these things. Yes?
Bob, are you familiar with House Bill 105?
If you tell me what it is.
It's property tax adjustments for people 65 and over at a lower income. Somehow their property tax, county tax would be adjusted downward. Do you have any idea of the status of that bill?
I really don't, not being in there every day and paying attention to that, that sort of thing. House Bill 105, you know, the first thing you need to find out is it's a money bill, obviously. So yeah. If it's a money bill, I believe it had to make crossover. I don't know if 105 made crossover in the Senate. I don't know if there's a companion bill in the Senate. I am not sure, but certainly it's easy enough to find out.
Okay.
I can give you a call.
Okay, thanks. Some people have been asking. It was written up in the Daily Advance, I would say about two or 3 months ago.
Yes.
And then nothing's been said.
Do you like it?
It didn't go into detail. What I saw, it looked okay to me.
All right. I'll be happy to check it out.
Yeah.
And all of you, and I'm sure
Appreciate it.
And could you remind us again some of the appropriations that we requested for?
Oh, it's a whole big list. You want that whole list? I got it right here. I can pull it out.
You can forward it to me. That'll be fine.
You should have the same thing that I have, which is right here. This was what was submitted to both legislators through the portal. And I know some of the things that are in there, the request was some help with this abandoned shopping center. That was one of the things I happened to notice right off the top when I was just going through this very quickly. Let's see here. That was, how much was that appropriation? Was it 250,000, I think, is that right, Corey?
I don't remember the exact number.
2,500,000, I beg your pardon, 2,500,000. That's one of the things that you all have requested. I think there's there's a recreational component, I believe, that's in there as well. That has been requested. That's, let's see, outdoor recreation complex land acquisition. That's $1.5 million, and that has been submitted. So that's, and I know you were interested in that
Yes.
in particular. And we're not going to get everything we ask for. We may not get anything we ask for, but I'm fairly confident we will get some things. Wastewater treatment plant expansion was another one. That certainly should be funded because of the direct tie-in with water and sewer and so forth. So when I say certainly, I mean, nobody knows until it's done. It's in the budget. But you're in the right category right there. That's for sure. And then there was $5.8 million for hangar area development and construction. So those are the biggies that were in there. There's some other items that aren't. There's not as much being requested for the other items. There's smaller items, and so. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I thank you for the question. Anybody else?
Anyone else have a question for Mr. Steinberg? If not, thank you very much for giving us your update. We thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to represent my hometown here in Edenton, North Carolina, and I think there are a few that can speak, that are in the legislature or lobby, that can speak as passionately about the needs here as I can, because I experience them firsthand. I see it every day. So happy to represent you all, and I thank you.
Well, being a bottom tier county, we need all the help we can get.
There you go, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Okay, the next on our list is a parking space request at 102 East Queen Street in Corey. I'll let you take that.
Thank you, Mayor. So I've been working with the Public Works Director as we've been making a lot of the roadway improvements. And one of the things that we've got the opportunity to do is add 2 additional parking spaces here at 102 East Queen. This is just across the 100 block of East Queen from the courthouse. Currently, there's already some sidewalk repairs that were shared in the agenda packet that we need to make, and we'd like to try to get those done before any paving is done in that area.
Yeah, a lady came out of the other day and tripped over those potholes and broke her arm.
Yeah,
So,
it's a bad area.
And so
Bad area.
that paving is scheduled to be completed within the next 2 weeks. So one of the things that was most urgent when David and I walked this down, one, we knew we needed to fix some of the areas for sidewalk, but we also have had some issues in the past with parking being utilized there because of the amount of space. So one of the things that we knew to try to get in front of was, one, to gain those 2 additional spaces, but also make it before any paving occurred, so we didn't have any asphalt cuts, anything like that after the fact. So David and I worked through that. I did share design with the council with the agenda packet, similar to some of the on-street parking we have throughout town for single and double spaces. That would be what the repairs would look like.
Would that be for customers visiting Caroline Real
Well,
Estate
it would
or
be for all of downtown. And
anybody,
so
okay.
one of the things that we had considered is establishing spaces, but also look at 2-hour parking or something along those lines once the parking is established. But we knew we needed council's approval to add any additional parking or parking reservations or no parking. And so that's kind of where we are, and we'd like to.
okay, that requires action, so I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, before we vote on it, Corey, are there any other opportunities around town to sneak 1 or 2 more parking spots here and there where it would not be objectionable and would be similar to this?
And we're working on that. Dwayne and I have a meeting Friday at 2:30 with the lady to help us with some of our parking needs for immediate needs, as well as more of a long-term master plan for our parking utilized versus available versus unavailable, and see what we have. So yes, the answer is yes. We will.
Good.
We will.
And speaking of that, Corey, The parking lot between the John Dowd building and the furniture store,
Yeah.
where is that? They've got it blocked off, and what is the deal there?
So to give you some information on that, so formerly, the property was occupied by a lease, by the furniture store, and at that time, the space was, the entire footprint of the property was owned by the bank. And we had a really good relationship with the bank, and they had always kind of kept that open. But that property is in private ownership now, and so, the property owner has chosen to list that property and actually close that parking area. So whereas we were dealing with a lease before and we were able to gain egress to that parcel, that's just not the case now.
There's nothing we can do about it.
No, sir, we've looked into it.
And we're putting in 2 parking spots right there, or was it 1?
Two.
2.
Mayor?
To fit 4 cars.
Anything we can do to slow traffic. I mean, I was
Yeah.
here the other night, these enormous jacked up trucks with great big mufflers were flying around, and I mean, we all hear it and see it, and it's just so frustrating.
Very much.
I'm gonna have some comments on that later.
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve these 2
Okay.
parking spaces.
I'll second it,
We
Mayor.
have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Just to follow up, Corey, this will be done in conjunction with that 100 block being
Yes.
resurfaced, okay?
Yes.
Okay. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, the next is a budget amendment, again for sewer collection asset inventory assessment for the fall of 2023, Phase 3. Corey?
Thank you, Mayor, and we've been working on this for quite some time, and I hate to provide you with an update so late into the process, but items C and D somewhat run in parallel, and that's actually what we're advised by the state. But this budget amendment will allow the finance director to accept the $200,000 from the Division of Water Infrastructure for project AIA-W-ARP-004. This project will include sewers collection, smoke testing, pump/lift station inspections, manhole inspections, as well as an updated capital improvement plan, a sewer rate study, grant management, and also 1 year of asset management software. This project will greatly improve the overall knowledge of our sewer system that are needed. If you remember, we've done 1 round of sewer improvements for our collection system over the last 2 years, and before and concurrently to that, we've also made some pump station improvements, particularly with 5. We've just finished some of the repairs, if you've noticed here, for the main lift. What this will do is this will allow us at a $0 cost to work again with our engineering group to reassess the condition of any places that have been fixed as well as places that haven't been fixed. This award was from fall of 2021 that was reconsidered in the spring of 22, and it was awarded at that time. There were some formalities we needed to clean up with DWI, and if you notice for the next item, that item D, Mayor, like I said, these run concurrently. This is also a budget amendment for $400,000 from Division of Wastewater Infrastructure for project VUR-AIA-W-ARP-0024. The items that were not covered in the scope of work for the $200,000 funding will be further completed in the additional $400,000. So this is $600,000 in asset management. So, I know we've got to vote on these separately, but I wanted everyone to understand with all the improvements that we made and with all the additional funding that we've been so blessed to receive from the state, these do work together. Ultimately, the goal is to make sure that we have the best water and sewer system that we can, and this funding will really get us there.
Okay.
So you'll need two motions?
Yes, we will.
Well, you've already done the motion on C.
Yes.
Okay, so we've done the motion on C but not voted, but you need a separate motion on D?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
One of the easiest jobs we have is accepting funding, I think.
Who made the motion?
We need a motion for the
Yeah,
item
we
C.
need a motion.
I make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And now, Mayor, we will need another motion to accept funding because these are going to be managed separately from a finance standpoint for the $400,000 in funding that we received from the Division of Water Infrastructure.
And can that simply, for purposes of the motion, be referred to as item D or fall 2023, phase 3?
Yes.
Your Honor, Your Honor.
That's right.
It's been a long day.
Still in the courtroom.
Mr. Mayor.
We'll take that.
Yes, that's on a cut down. Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept this budget amendment for the fall 2023 phase 3 amendment.
Second, Mayor.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And Mayor Stallings, before you move on, one time I was asked to pray in Sunday school, and I began it by saying, Your Honor. So you're in high regard.
You're high regard.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our special meeting, and now we'll go into our committee meeting. And the first on the list is Administrative Committee, and that's chaired by Councilman High.
Thank you, Mayor Stallings. We only have one matter to report on tonight, and that is a job description and pay grade for our groundsman apprentice job. Interim Director of the Electrical Department, Hunter Chamberlain, and our town manager got together and noticed that currently if someone comes in with no experience and starts out in the electrical department as a groundman, they are getting paid, would be getting paid the same as somebody with 3 years of experience or 2 years of experience beginning their third year. So this is a request by the department head and town manager to create a new job classification and pay grade to correct that so that a newcomer's not making the same as somebody who's been giving us good service for a couple years. Anything to add on that, Corey?
Yeah, just one thing, Councilman High. This is the correct move both for the employee as well as the town. When I talk about the town, we get someone on day one that would come in this job classification to work with our line crew. And really that's a disadvantage to the town as well as the employee because it would be at least 2 years of training before that person would truly complete the number of hours that are needed for the lineman position, as well as the amount of certifications that follow that career path. And so, that employee doesn't see any type of increase or any type of change other than cost of living. I mean, all these certifications that they're working through, there's really no incentive for them to see to get to that next round because their new and correct training really wouldn't start until year 2+. And so they don't really see the importance to get to that next step. And so this will really create that opportunity for that new hire to really advance correctly with the right training with, starting on day one.
So to be clear, there's no employees that will be affected by this?
No.
Not like a active?
No.
Okay.
And one thing to note, we do have 2 vacancies now for the electric department. That's why Virginia and I wanted to go ahead and get this corrected. Those 2 vacancies now, when we create this job on June 12th or June 13th at our next meeting, if approved that following day, we can post it correctly. So we would actually post those 2 vacancies as a groundman apprentice, but currently no employees are employed as groundman apprentices. So these would be 2 vacancies which the department head knows is on hold until we decide how to deal with this job description and pay grade creation.
Any reason we can't wait till July 1 when the new budget goes into effect?
That's perfectly fine. We wouldn't hire a new employee between the dates of June 13th to July 1 anyway. There would be interview processes, so we could post it sooner, but we wouldn't hire that person till after July 1 anyway. So we'll make sure to do that.
Okay.
So Mayor, it looks like this is ready for us to push it forward to June to vote on, and you would have the recommendation of the administrative committee that we vote in favor of it.
Okay. Is that a motion? It requires action, so is that
Yeah,
a motion?
we would, I would put that in the form of a motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. And the next is the Finance Committee, and that's chaired by Councilman Dixon.
So, Virginia Smith, thank you, Virginia, and Corey have completed the initial draft of next year's budget. That was emailed to everybody today, so check your emails. I don't know who got it, whether you looked at it or not. I was in court with dishonor all day, so I haven't had a chance to review it anymore. And so the Finance Committee is going to meet later this week, and then a public notice is going to be submitted to the local newspaper on tomorrow, and stating the date that it'll be posted online, starting on May 26th. It's going online, so people can look at it, and then we will have a public comment session on June 12th, where people can come in and make comments. And in the meantime, we will probably also have another meeting that hadn't been scheduled yet.
Is that June 13th or 12th?
Our next regular
June 12th,
schedule,
It says, the 12th.
yeah.
You got a question?
Yes, sir. Did I get my curving and sidewalks?
I hope you did. We're going to certainly try to put it back in if you didn't.
Okay.
June 12th is a Monday.
That would be our regularly scheduled meeting. That would be when the public comments.
That's June 13th.
This is 13th, not 12th.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, yeah, the 13th.
Yeah, 13th.
That's a good question, Al.
Yeah.
And so at that time, that would be when we would handle any public comment. And
At our June meeting.
yes, and we would schedule a special meeting with full council after that date, so everyone has a chance to review and address any concerns they have. This initial meeting this week is just with the Finance Committee to work through some of the initial details.
And this is a huge process for these two people to do this.
Oh,
So
yeah,
thank you
very much so.
for taking the time.
Requires a lot of time, a lot of patience. So, all right, and that concludes our regular scheduled program. At this time, we are scheduled to go into closed session to discuss a personal matter. So I need a motion for us to
So
go
moved,
into.
Mayor.
We have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion, and a second, that we go into closed session. So we'll ask you, if you will, to dismiss yourselves.